Hello everyone, welcome to Tiny Gwen Miniatures. My name is Rachel. This is Stitch. We've had a good time this week. Well, I say we, Stitch hasn't really been much help at all, I have to say. I've had a good time this week, finally getting started on the inside of the 12th scale Alpine Lodge. So if you want to follow me making a big mess with getting the wallpaper off, and just painting the inside white and getting the floors done. So made the floorboards from scratch with just card and paint. So if that's something that you feel like you'd like to do, I'm hoping this is going to help you. So yeah, I shall see you after. Here is the house interior. Before I start decorating, I've started doing a bit of sanding and stripping off the wallpaper, so I'm going to see how easily the rest of it comes off. I may have to soak some. All done. Very messy, sticky and immensely satisfying job. I've got absolutely covered in bits of Gubbinsy wallpaper, and I still need to clean up all the little bits before they dry, because if I don't, they'll stick all over again, and I'll be clearing up bits of bits of this forevermore. So yeah, that all needs to be done, and then I'll wash the walls down properly, give them a light sanding, and then I'm going to fill in the gaps with some light polyfiller. But yeah, pretty pleased with that. It's a shame because somebody's spent time and effort putting that wallpaper up many years ago, but it was looking grotty and faded. And also I want the walls to be fairly plain, because I've got very folk style painted furniture to go in, so I don't want it to be too busy. She says it may well be too busy by the end, but you never know. So as you can see, I've got some gaps to fill here. I've done a few. I've got this ready mix lightweight filler, which I'm really liking. It's quite easy to use, and I've found it's just easier just to use my fingers. I started using the spatula, yeah, that was difficult in such a tight, dark space. So I'm just literally just filling it in with my fingers at the moment. So I'll show you how I get on. I've got a few little bits to do. So I decided while I was doing all the bits of filling that I was going to fix the window frame here. Sorry about the camera. So I've cut these sticks with whatever this is. Not entirely sure what it's called, some kind of angle cutter, but it's really useful. So these are just cut at a 45-degree angle, and I'm just going to glue them on with some of my favourite glue. This is Beacon 3-in-1. Okay, it's not absolutely perfect. There's some of the joints have a few gaps, but it's okay because I can fill those the same way I've done with the little gaps in the house. But at least that job's done. I'm keeping it fairly plain because I've got quite an ornate piece to go in the middle. It's going to be an arty kind of magical type window. Patched up outside as well. I've had to add a new frame around the window, and sorry, it's out of focus, and put a little bit of filler in the top here, so when that dries I'll neaten that up and give it a little bit more paint. But the acetate's in there as well now. I've got the worst of the mess up. I've still got a lot of sanding to do, but I wanted to, this is to go in the attic window. It's going this way round, so I'm going to paint this first white, because I'm not going to be able to get to the other side once it's in, because the acetate will be in the way. I'm not sure how it's going to look. We shall see. Just going to get on with it, and then I'll show you when I've finished. And that's the window in. Just ready to paint. It's a brand new day, rainy today, thank goodness, a bit cooler, not quite so muggy and clammy. I've started putting on the white paint. This is the first coat. I'm using a satin wood because I just want to do the same on the skirtings and the walls. I'm just keeping it very, very plain and white and nice and light and bright. Nearly there. Can hear the rain on the roof and pouring on the windows. How lovely. So the undercoat's all done. That's the first coat, and I'm hoping it'll take just one more coat. So I'm using a Dulux quick dry satin wood, which is water based, so it's much easier to clean off everything. No white spirit or terps or anything involved. It's nice to have a blank canvas to work with. This is a scoring board, and I'm going to be using this to help me make the ridges for the floorboards. As you can see, it's got little grooves like a washboard, and it comes with a scoring knife as well. So I'm doing these floorboards, I'm just using, it's not very thick, it's fairly thin, but it's not so thin that it's going to rip, and it's like a brown, when I was at school I think we used to call it like a sugar paper, but it's better quality than that. It's kind of light on one side and darker on the other, so it just depends on what you want to do. But I mean, you can pretty much use whatever you like. This is just handy because it's near enough the colour I need in the first place. So I'm doing mine this way, all of my floorboards, and I'm doing them 1 centimetre apart for each one. I didn't do that very well. Maybe you can see. The nice thing about doing floorboards is if you do make a mistake and you have any kind of wobbly bit, it doesn't matter because it's wood and it's aging and it's fairly forgiving. So I'm basically going to do this for the whole sheet. For the rest of the house I have 5 sheets to do. I've already done the bottom floor. I wanted to have a practice first before I showed you, but for the rest of the house I have another 5 sheets to do. I'm hoping to have some left over because I want to use the wood effect for some pieces of furniture as well, so I'm going to be keeping that. So I'm basically going to be scoring each of these, and then I'll get back to you. I wanted to say, if you don't have a scoreboard and you don't feel like purchasing one, that's fine. It's not completely necessary. I just find it easier than measuring, but you can just measure centimetre across the top and centimetres across the bottom, and then line your rule up to do your lines. I mean, you can, with the paint effect, it doesn't have to be grooved because we're going to be going over it with a pen to accentuate the gap. So don't panic if you don't have one of these. It's not completely necessary. You can still get a really good effect, but I just find this easier than measuring everything. Also, it does give a groove, so you can see some difference in the depth of the paper. Now this is the simplest process. You just need some brown paint or whatever colour you're doing your floorboards in. I'm just doing brown. Got a brown drawing pen, something to mix my paint in, water, and a flattish brush, nice soft brush. Doesn't have to be soft actually. If you've got a one that's more for acrylic use or oils, you could get some nice texture with the bristles. But I have found you haven't really got to think about it too much, as long as you're going in the right direction with your paint. It kind of paints itself. It just seems to turn out like floorboards without even thinking. So I'm actually getting a bit short of brown paint, and I'm really hoping it's going to cover the five sheets without having to buy some more at the moment. But I'm just adding a bit of water. This is just acrylic. And you want to be putting your brush strokes on in line with your floorboards, so as if it's a grain of wood. And if you get kind of patchy bits, this is the beauty of doing it on brown paper. If you get patchy bits, that's fine, because it looks like wood texture. So don't overthink it, just have fun. You want darker bits where there's more tread. As you can see, it's already looking woody, and I'm just basically slapping it on. But just make sure you're going in the grain. The movement of the brush goes in the grain line. So I'm going to get on and paint all of these. It's really easy, and I'll be back. So these are all painted, and they've been drying outside and blowing all over the garden. Thankfully they're quite robust, so it's got a slight bit of sheen on there as well with the acrylic paint, which is quite nice. Can't stress enough not to be too tidy with your paint. Don't be tempted to keep working the paint in. So the looser the brush strokes and the more kind of patchy the better, the more it looks like wood. So don't be too much of a perfectionist with your painting. The paper has curled slightly, which is a bit annoying, so I'm having to just try and bend it back in place. Thankfully it is pretty sturdy, so that's fine. So the next stage is to use a fine marker. This is a 0.5 brown, water and fade proof. So all of this is going to be waterproof, so if you wanted to put a varnish on it, you can. So you have to have a proper drawing pen, because then they're going to be they're not going to smudge with any water or varnish. You can see the tip. I'm going to follow the lines of the grooves that I made with the scoring board. I'm going to do mine freehand, but feel free to use a ruler if you're more comfortable with that. Just take a little bit of concentration in this bit, not quite as much fun as the painting. Again, if it's a little bit wibbly wobbly, it's okay, doesn't matter. These are old floorboards. So I'm going to do every single sheet, every single floorboard. I'll just add here that the reason I've used brown is because I want it to have a softer effect. I don't want harsh stripes that deflect from everything else in the room. So if I use black, it's likely to be too harsh. The lines will be too hard, and I want them to blend in a little bit. I want it to be noticeable that they're individual floorboards, but not to the point where it's the thing that you see as soon as you look in the room. Also, if you feel fully want to, you can use your pen to add knots and more detailed. You can go over sections at the side of the planks to add a deeper line where it looks like there's more of a gap between the floorboards so that they're not completely even. If you've done your lines and you've gone over, that's fine, because you can just make it look like a bit of grain in the wood. So you can just lightly draw grains if you want to. I'm not going to do too much because, as I said, I don't want it to be the main focal point. I did actually on the downstairs one. I've added a couple of little highlights in where the edge of the floorboard might hit the light, so I might show you how to do that in a bit. Just a little tip when drawing lines that have to be straightish. If you keep your hand fairly rigid, so put your pen where you need to, and then move your whole arm in the direction you need to go without flexing your fingers, gives you a much steadier basis for your line. And when you're happy with your floorboards, you can just randomly marking sections where it might have been cut. So just going to do a line across here and there where it pleases your eye. I've got a little hole in the paper here, but I quite like the effect because it does look like the wood's a little bit damaged. Once you've got all your joins in, you can add small nail markings. Floorboards are ready to be stuck in now. I've got going to be using PVA and a biggish brush, not too big but just enough into the corners. I've got some heavy things to go to hold it all down because otherwise it'll start curling up, and my dog who's lazing on the floor on the messy floor. So I'm sticking it all in now, smoothing out a few of the bubbles, hoping they'll dry flat. Some of the corners don't want to stay down, so I've got these blocks which are really helpful. I'm just going to I've already pre-cut this shape, and I'm going to put a load of glue all over. I won't make the mistake I did last time and put too much glue. Using a biggish brush, I'm getting right into the corners, putting it on fairly thick because it is the flooring itself is quite a thick paper, and with the acrylic on top it is tending to lift a little. I might need a bit more than that. Getting right to the edges of the room. All finished. Walls painted, floors down. Really happy with the result. And also knowing that there won't be anybody with exactly the same flooring because it's all been hand made. So that's a nice thing about doing it yourself, painting it all yourself. It does take longer, but it's rewarding and it's worth it. So that feels good now to have that finally done. Thinking I've got plans for the attic room, so I think the next video is going to be me trying to build some fitted seating around the attic space, which I've got some ideas and I've made a few plans. So I'm going to talk you through that. Hopefully it'll hopefully it'll work out okay, and I'll see you next week. Thanks very much, guys. Bye.